Hey guys, Aaron Cybertron Zhang here, and today I'm back with another episode of Road to Ranked, where I climb the Online Series 12 ladder and provide live commentary as I go. Today we're trying out what I think is a very unique team featuring Black Sludge Eternatus with Recover, as well as Weakness Policy Solgaleo. This team was built by a player called Zordor. We've actually featured one of their teams a couple of years ago, actually, more towards the beginning of Sword and Shield, where we used a Sirfetch'd team that they had built. And so, huge thank you to them for building this and making it public. I've linked their Twitter down in the description below, as well as a rental and a paste if you want to try it out yourselves. As always, I'll do a quick breakdown of the team, but if you want to just skip to the battles, check out the timestamps in the description below. And thanks so much as always for watching. If you enjoy, please show your support by leaving a like. I'd really appreciate it. So, Eternatus and Solgaleo is a very unique restricted pairing. I don't think I've actually ever gone up against it before. I had never seen it up until this team really appeared. And there's so many cool things about this team because I think it's actually kind of like a anti-meta team. So I first of all want to talk about Eternatus for a little bit. You know, this Pokemon we used a decent amount in some of the other restricted formats. It's not very common in Series 12, partially because, like, it obviously can't Dynamax, which limits its ability to, like, stay around on the field for a while, right? And it is weak to Ground as well as Dragon, and those are both pretty common typings. Being weak to Ground especially can make your matchup against Groudon, you know, which is one of the most common Pokemon in the format, decently scary. But you know, Eternatus can actually hang on the field for a long time, especially between Recover, Black Sludge, and dual screens from Grimmsnarl. And of course, this Pokemon does a ton of damage, especially to any Dynamax option via Dynamax Cannon. And so the idea of Eternatus is that it's bulky, it can absorb hits, and Recover actually allows it to stay out on the field for a lot longer than players generally anticipate. And so Black Sludge plus Recover is also a unique set. You know, we featured like Cosmic Power before, or set up like, you know, Power of Meteor Beam, but this is a bulkier set that really takes advantage of the screens from Grimmsnarl. So that's one of your restricted. Your other is going to be Weakness Policy Solgaleo. You know, I love this Pokemon, and I think Solgaleo, unfortunately, is probably not amazing in the meta right now, especially given the amount of like Yveltals and Calyrex Shadow Rider teams that have really popped up. But you know, I think that it can just be an absolute monster if you're able to set it up. And so, you know, there are a bunch of ways you can actually activate policy here. The main one is going to be Bulldoze from Entei. So you can just lead Entei Solgaleo with Inner Focus. Entei is immune to Fake Outs. You don't have to worry about like Incin or Rillaboom clicking Fake Out. And ideally just go for Bulldoze into the policy. There are a lot of things you have to watch out for though, right? Like if Entei just gets outsped and KO'd by something like Choice Scarf Kyogre, that can be a really big issue. So Entei and Solgaleo can be a good lead, but only in the right matchups where it's like you don't think your opponent can just outspeed and KO Entei immediately. Because if Entei gets knocked out before you activate policy on Solgaleo, you're going to be left with a very sad Solgaleo. So pretty straightforward in terms of the moves here on Solgaleo. Entei here is actually Charcoal, and so this actually becomes a really strong Dynamax option, especially with Max Flare. And so you want to keep that potentially as an option as you play with the team. And finally, to round out the team, you've got two very cool members in Assault Vest Thundurus as well as Thick Fat Snorlax. So Vest Thundurus-T is really interesting. You know, this Pokemon is somewhat similar to, you know, Zapdos or, you know, regular Thundurus that wants to Dynamax, but, you know, Thundurus-T here is a little bit faster than Zapdos, and, you know, it's Space 101. And so that allows you to guarantee outspeeding Charizard, which is a really big deal because otherwise Charizard can give this team, you know, a nightmare, right? Matchup. And so the idea is like you have Vest Thundurus-T, which can Dynamax and just max Lightning into Charizard and also absorb hits a little bit better. For example, against those teams, you can go like Grimmsnarl, Thundurus, set up screens, and then just max Lightning immediately. Vest Thundurus actually has a pretty nice matchup into a lot of common restricteds as well, right? Like Kyogre, for example, you can take hits decently well. Going up against something like Calyrex Shadow Rider, you can max Darkness, for example. And then Grass Knot here is valuable not only for max Overgrowth, but can also help out against like Gastrodon in general, which is, you know, one of the more common Pokemon right now. And then finally, you've got Thick Fat Sitrus Berry Snorlax with Double Edge Seed Bomb, Darkest Lariat, and Yawn. Thick Fat Snorlax is something that I've seen some players use, especially after, you know, the original Rinya Sun team kind of took off and won regionals in Salt Lake a couple of months ago. And the idea is that with Thick Fat, you can take like attacks from even like G-Max Wildfire, for example, and then retaliate back with Yawn. And so this Snorlax set I think is very intriguing because Yawn is super good for disruption. You know, Yawn was a lot more common, I feel like, in the non-restricted formats in Sword and Shield, not so much in these formats, but it still has a lot of power. And, you know, if you're able to Yawn something that Dynamaxes on turn 1, and you get the Yawn off as soon as it maxes, you can put yourself in an incredible position. So the other moves are just really good for coverage across the board, and Snorlax potentially could even be a max option. You know, I think Solgaleo is the most common one here, but Entei, Thundurus, and Snorlax can all max in the right matchups as well. So Yeah, it's definitely a very anti-meta team, featuring a very unique restricted duo, and just a lot of Pokemon that, we don't use very frequently in this format. So, excited to try it out. Thank you to Zordor once again for the team. And question of the day, I want to know what legendary Pokemon you think has the best lore. I honestly do not know very much about the lores from any of the legendaries, so curious to read your answers here. But, let's get started. Alright. Cradily, Calyrex, Groudon, Scrafty. What? This is so cool. Okay. I'm somewhat interested in Yawn Snorlax here. I would be interested in Entei plus Solgaleo, but like, Solga's just not exactly amazing into Groudon or Calyrex here, so I want to be a little bit careful about that. Vest Thundurus is somewhat interesting. It's actually really solid into Calyrex with the Assault Vest. Could Grass Knot Groudon if it doesn't max. I feel like Grim for speed control here is pretty valuable because I can just Thunder Wave things. All of our Pokemon are interesting here, so I don't know who to really drop. I'm also thinking, like, who's our best max option? Like, I'm actually interested in playing a little bit more passively with Grim and Snorlax to, like, try to bait out my opponent's Dynamax and then really go from there, I think. Cradily is also a very big wild card, but... Okay, I'm down to try Grim Snorlax, Eternatus Solgaleo in the back. My issue with Thundurus is that it's very bad into Dynamax Groudon. If I were my opponent, I think Max Groudon is their clear max option, to which then I could go for example, Reflect with Grimmsnarl and get a Yawn off into Groudon to start the game. And then if we can stall out their Dynamax late game, Dynamax Solgaleo, even without Policy and Eternatus, is very solid here in my opinion. So, we'll see. Yeah. Cradily, I haven't really gone up against it in such a long time, so I'm really curious about that. They do just go with Calyrex and Groudon, which honestly I'm okay with here. Because like I mentioned, I can just angle for like Yawn immediately, as well as either Thunder Wave or Reflect here. Now, one thing to note is that my berries are cancelled right now from Calyrex. So I think because Groudon is really the main threat in my eyes here currently, I'm down to start off with the Reflect here, and then a Yawn. Low-key, maxing Snorlax is also interesting, but I want to Yawn if we can like catch Groudon Dynamaxing or Sword Stancing on turn 1. They're not going to max. Okay. So there's Reflect. Okay, they go for Speed Swap. That's actually a really cool strat. And just Blades. Okay, we get a lucky dodge there, but don't really think it's that big of a deal, given that I have Reflect up right now as well. And I get Yawn off onto Groudon. So I think Groudon now is going to be interested in switching out, right? Honestly, here, I don't mind doubling up onto Calyrex if I can. Calyrex maybe goes for a Protect here. I think Groudon has to switch. So the other interesting thing is like clicking Yawn again, but eliminating Calyrex here is also a big deal because that is not a fun Pokemon to deal with given what I have in the back in Solgaleo and Eternatus, right? Calyrex is actually the one to make the switch though. Okay. Interesting. Into Scrafty. Huh. Okay. So is Groudon Lumberied then? I feel like that's the only logical explanation for staying in here. Just press Blades again. Okay. Like, with Reflect right now, we're taking it decently well, but it's still not amazing. You have to have Lum here, right? Otherwise, like, that play is definitely confusing. Either way, we get a super effective Spirit Break and a Scrafty, so that's nice. 4 times super effective. They have a berry. Wow. So it's Sitrus Scrafty? It's got to be Lum on Groudon then, I think. Darkest Lariat. Okay, not really much there. Show me the Lumberry. You're not Lum. Wow. Okay, I'll take it. I mean, I'll very gladly take it. Let's Spirit Break into Scrafty now, and then switch out into Solgaleo. Because the thing is, it's actually going to be really difficult for my opponent to deal with Solgaleo without activating its weakness policy. Okay. Yeah, fake out on a Grim. Fine, no problem. Turn to sleep. 2 turns to Reflect. I mean, I'm down to max and Steel Spike into Scrafty right now. Set up a light screen here to cover for Calyrex, to which I can knock it out next turn. Yeah. Because with Reflect Up and getting defense boost right now, like, we'll be in a decent position with the Solgaleo, right? One of the big questions is, what is their final Pokemon? It could be Thundurus, it could be Cradily. They're going to stay in with Groudon here, which is fine by me. I think the only frustrating thing is I was hoping for my opponent to Dynamax a little bit earlier, because Eternatus just doesn't fare that well into Groudon, right? Especially given that they have Speedy Groudon right now because of Speed Swap. So that's one of my concerns. The idea behind setting up Light Screen this turn is because I don't think like Spirit Break really accomplishes much. I do waste a turn of Light Screen in doing so, but I'm trying to Thunder Wave the Calyrex next turn. Okay, Groudon does manage to wake up, but it actually misses, and that's a really unfortunate miss because we have Reflect Up, so that would just activate my policy. So, one of those scenarios where I'd actually prefer for my opponent to hit me, but that's fine. Now we get a defense boost. I still have Reflect Up. I got Light Screen up. If you bring out Calyrex, I can Thunder Wave the Calyrex immediately. All of that is good news for me. I would love to get a second Reflect Up in this game if possible, but I don't know if that's really... if we can easily accomplish that. It is a little frustrating to, yeah, eat up... because if that connects, then I can just, like, target Groudon with relative ease the next turn. It would force Groudon to Dynamax, essentially, right? It's my last turn to Reflect, 4 turns of Light Screen. I can T-Wave Calyrex and Steel Spike it right now. I'm just kind of worried about like how I handle Groudon right now. Okay, I'm gonna Thunder Wave the Calyrex. But I'm honestly down to Steel Spike into Groudon because they've shown willingness to like potentially activate my weakness policy. So if like you max Quake into the Solgaleo slot, then you know I have Reflect, I have this defense boost. Oh wow. Okay, I did not expect that. It's actually going to be Calyrex Dynamaxing. So they're trying to just snipe me off with like a Precipice Blades plus a Max Phantasm, which certainly makes sense. But this is where T-Wave helps a lot. We don't miss, fortunately, so that's good. So the question is, how much do you actually do to Solgaleo right now? Precipice Blades will connect this time around. Yeah, as you can see, it barely touches Solgaleo. Activates my policy, which is what I was looking for, which is very nice here. Either way, yeah, it's interesting to see the Calyrex max, especially since... I mean, I'm sure it's like Speed Swap, Astral Barrage, a Psychic type attack, and a 4th. Unfortunately, we missed the KO on Groudon, which I don't love, but that's okay. Get another defense boost along the way. No full para. They will get Phantasm. Okay. Like, you know, that's obviously a decent amount of damage, but that's really not too bad at the end of the day. Reflect wears off now. Like, I'm down to bringing out Snorlax right now, I think. The main reason I don't want to bring out Eternatus is because I don't want it to just eat up a Precipice Blades immediately. Snorlax can take it a little bit better here. Like, I have Yawn, so I'm down to Yawn into Calyrex right now. Max Guard is actually interesting. What's the alternative? Like, Quaking into Groudon? Okay, I'm not completely opposed to that either. Get a special defense boost. They're going to miss Precipice Blades here on Solgaleo. Okay, connects on Groudon or Snorlax. We survive. Max Quake for the KO. I think this should allow me to survive a Phantasm. If Calyrex gets full parried here, they're also in trouble. The thing with Precipice Blades is when you have Groudon on the field for like, what, 6 turns and you click Precipice Blades each turn, you know, a couple are bound to miss here. But they still got very solid value out of Groudon, all things considered, in this game. Okay, and they're actually going to commit the Mindstorm to KO Snorlax. Yeah, that makes sense. That's why I didn't want to protect there with the Solgaleo. The advantage now, though, is that I outspeed you with both Pokemon, so Eternatus now, I can double up onto the Calyrex, right? Them getting a Grim Neigh boost is a little bit scary, but we have Dynamax Cannon and +2 Solgaleo. And Thundurus is their last one. So Thundurus normally is scary, but because Psychic Terrain is up right now, you can't really do very much with it if you are supportive. And that's what's really interesting here. What are the odds it's like physical, right? 2 turns of light screen left. I mean, even if you are physical, you're not going to KO me here, right? So, like, Dynamax Cannon here, and it's either Rock Slide or just Sun Steel Strike onto the Calyrex. But I'm down to double up on a Calyrex here. No Max Guard, which is beautiful. Okay. So we get Dynamax Cannon off. It's a great amount of damage. It's just Wild Charge, but we have defense boosts here. Perfect. Okay, beautiful. And Sunsteel Strike here should get the knockout. Nice, nice, nice. And we did get a little bit lucky throughout this game because there were a couple of Precipice Blades misses on Solgaleo. You know, the first one I was actually hoping to hit, but it would have done more damage, right? Because I didn't have the defense boost yet from the Max Steel Spike here. So, definitely fairly lucky in that regard. Now we can just Dynamax Cannon and Sunsteel Strike. Rock Slide there, like, may have been able to, you know, just pick up a knockout onto both, but I never want to go for it there because I don't want to risk the chance of missing, because if we miss, then the Calyrex can just get a Max Mindstorm off into Eternatus, and that feels really bad, right? And Thundurus in this position should never really be able to win. Like, even if you crit and KO Solgaleo here, I don't think you can win against the Eternatus, and they don't crit there. So Snorlax was really nice for us in the early game because of the Yawn. Eternatus was really nice once we were able to get the Paralysis onto the Calyrex. And Solgaleo's damage output in general here was also really solid. So honestly, all of the team members put in a fair amount of work here, and that's always, you know, it makes me happy to see. But yeah, interesting to see both like Cradily and Scrafty. Those aren't exactly very common Pokemon here. And one of the reasons I really like the Snorlax on this team is because it's kind of just like one of those anti-meta sets where, you know, Big Fat's unique and then Yawn is just really valuable. And even though my opponent didn't commit a Dynamax super early on, it was still fine for us. But yeah, the early Wake Up on Groudon made things a lot scarier because then they're just pressuring with these fast Precipice Blades each turns, right? So, fun way to get started though. Let's look for another. Alright, next game here, and it is Yveltal Groudon with Lando, Rotom, Incin, and Whimsicott. Okay. Big Fat Snorlax once again is very intriguing to me here. Can we do anything with Thundurus? I mean, it's faster than Yveltal, but that's basically it, so probably not. I think Yveltal's kind of scary for the Solgaleo Eternatus combo here. So I don't mind trying to get some screens up early with Grim just to reduce their damage output. Entei is actually a very interesting Dynamax option here, especially if they set up the Sun. Snorlax is still valuable. This is like a nightmare matchup for Solgaleo, so I'm honestly like thinking about not even bringing it. But at the same time, like if they activate Policy for us, like Max Rockfalls do a ton of damage, right? So I feel like I should still bring it. Like, do I bother going with Snorlax early on? Because if I get a Yawn off into something like Dynamax's, it's incredible. Okay. I'm honestly going to go with Grim, Snorlax, Solgaleo, Eternatus again, and the idea is to, like, play a kind of long, drawn-out early game. Like, Yveltal Groudon's probably one of the worst restricted combos for us to go up against, but, you know, just because the matchup is bad doesn't mean it's unwinnable. Just gotta find clever ways to win. The main thing here is if we can, yeah, get a Yawn off into whatever we think is Dynamaxing early on, that's absolutely huge. It's gonna be Incin and Rotom, okay. I mean, this is where Yawn into Rotom is really valuable, right? Now, from my opponent's perspective, it makes sense to just click Fake Out onto one slot and then Nasty Plot or Will-O-Wisp with Rotom on turn 1. That's kind of what I expect. I'm interested in actually clicking Spirit Break rather than Light Screen. Spirit Break and Yawn into Rotom. Then Light Screen on turn 2. Because, I mean, I guess Rotom could Dynamax here, but I don't even know if a Fake Out Max Flare KOs Grim. Wow, they actually are going to Max. Okay. Interesting. Maybe Light Screen's a little bit better then, just to, like, cover for them maxing immediately. I really did not think that would happen. Just because like so many Rotoms are nasty plot. So that was a nice play. My main question is, do you like Kyogre and Snarl? Also, who do you fake out here? Okay, it is fake out into Grim. Yeah, that's what I figured. Double up onto that slot makes a lot of sense. But this is kind of what I was talking about earlier, which was getting a Yawn off into their Dynamaxmon. They do one-shot Grimmsnarl, though, so that's a great play on their end. But if, you know, we can put Rotom to sleep and then have this, like, late-game Dynamax Solgaleo, it's not that bad. It is indeed Life Orb Rotom. Very cool. Very cool. Okay. Now I can bring out good old Eternatus. Snorlax is so nice here with Yawn, honestly. It's cool to run, you know, this Pokemon, which has been very good for a lot of different formats, both in Sword and Shield and outside, but in a completely different manner. So I'm down to Dynamax Cannon into Rotom now, and actually just click Yawn into the Incineroar slot. Max Lightning here would set up the terrain, but does not prevent Rotom from falling asleep. Okay, they're not going to protect or switch out either. And what's interesting here is, you know, my opponent probably doesn't know about Thick Fat. So are you willing to click Max Lightning here, set up the electric terrain so that other Pokemon don't fall asleep? Or do you just Flare, expecting to knock us out here? Look at that. That's the Thick Fat Snorlax difference. Oh, that's beautiful. Okay, so they Yawn, or sorry, they Parting Shot into Snorlax as well. Beautiful. Snorlax is putting in so much work for us right now. So what we're looking to play towards is like a late game Dynamax Solgaleo. Ideally have my opponent activate my weakness policy. I could also activate my own policy by clicking Flamethrower onto it. Gotta be a little bit careful about that though. Yveltal comes out. Okay, makes sense. The other thing to be careful about is like Yveltal can outspeed Solgaleo, so if I activate policy and they just foul play me, that's obviously a nightmare. So I want to be very careful about that. Okay, Rotom falls asleep now. Perfect. Now you would think Yveltal is inclined to switch out, right? So I can essentially keep cycling Yawns. I'm going to Dynamax Cannon and Yawn here, because Rotom is completely useless for at least a turn right now. And if Yveltal stays in and is willing to stay asleep, great, but this is the pressure that Yawn can apply in a given game. Even though, like, this early game is going okay, like, I still have to consider how I'm doing enough damage to win this in the long run, right? That can be a little bit scary. And in this position, we really don't want to intentionally knock out Rotom, because if we do, then it just gives my opponent a free switch in, and it completely breaks, like, the cycle of me clicking Yawn. So I'd rather not do that right now. Because we're just getting guaranteed, like, free damage with Dynamax Cannon across the board, right? And that is pretty sweet. Eternatus actually really walls the Rotom, which is also valuable here. So Rotom's max ends. It now can wake up this next turn, but we should be able to survive an overheat here with Snorlax. So Incin here, like, I'm willing to just Dynamax Cannon it and click Yawn into it once again. Right? You either fall asleep here or you switch out and then something comes in and falls asleep. But they're going to stay in here. Okay. If we high roll Dynamax Cannon, this could just be a KO. It's very close to a 50-50. Okay, that is a knockout. I'm not sure I really wanted that. Yeah, and Rotom wakes up. Okay, a little bit less than ideal there. But it's fine. Snorlax takes that. And we heal back up. Okay. I mean, so the interesting thing is the end game is going to be this Yveltal plus this Groudon, right? And like with Solgaleo, will be in decent shape. At least the Yawn does get redirected into Rotom, so now Rotom is in a very awkward spot going into this next turn. It would make sense for them to switch in Groudon right now and just Precipice Blades. Did they not bring Groudon? Because I feel like if you had Groudon, Groudon would come out there, but maybe not. Okay. I am down to just Dynamax Cannon now into the Rotom slot, which I think should switch out, and then just Yawn into Yveltal. Yep, so there's a switch. Is it Groudon? Interesting. I feel like, yeah, if they just brought Groudon out first, then you could easily switch Rotom out into Yveltal and just click Precipice Blades, whereas now you have a little bit less damage pressure onto Eternatus, which I'll take. It may have been better just going for Dynamax Cannon onto Yveltal, but, like, I don't mind getting this damage on a... Oh my gosh! Wait, that was honestly a lot more damage than I expected, and they actually clicked Snarl as well, meaning they'll actually allow me to get a Yawn off, which is also very desirable right now. Snorlax has definitely been the MVP of this one. I think this next turn, Sunlight fades. their most likely play is to, what, switch Yveltal into Rotom-H and just Precipice Blades. So, like, I'm down to just protect and sacrifice Snorlax to finally get my Solgaleo in for free. And if for some reason you protect Groudon, switch Yveltal to Rotom, I'm down to click Yawn into that slot. But Dynamax Cannon doing over 50 to Groudon is a very pleasant surprise here. Shout out to Thick Fat Snorlax, though. Like, this is mainly, you know, optimal for, like, the standard Sun teams that you expect to go up against, like Charizard, Groudon, Gastrodon, for example. But it's been amazing here. Especially because Rotom committed to Dynamax so early on. This Yawn is also just, like, it's really tough for my opponent to play around. Oh, interesting. Okay. They're going to stay in. Just snarl me, sure. Now, Swords Dance with Groudon is where things get interesting. But because you KO Snorlax and you give me a free switch, and actually it's totally fine. Earthquake, wow. That's one way around potentially missing Precipice Blades. Okay. But I feel like now you just lose the game because you let Yveltal fall asleep. Like, I'm really surprised to not see a switch there, because now you're never really... Your only damage output is coming out from Groudon at this point. So I am simply going to just Dynamax Cannon into Yveltal, Max Solgaleo, and just Steel Spike onto Groudon. That feels fine to me. The defense boost here is really big, and like we've conserved our Dynamax enough to the point where I think we should be able to sweep with this core. The only thing I'd be worried about is like critical hits right now, or Groudon being bulky enough to take a Steel Spike from the range that it's at, because Solgaleo's damage output sometimes feels underwhelming. But, you know, Dynamax Cannon out, we'll just finish off Rotom. If you Snarl or Foul Play, you'd activate my Policy. We can confirm who's faster here this turn as well, between Solgaleo and Yveltal. And if Solgaleo is actually faster, then I can just self-Flamethrower into Rockfall the next turn. But we're just slowly chipping away at Yveltal right now. And we are faster. Okay, that's very good information. I wouldn't even mind Groudon surviving here and activating my Policy, but it is going to faint. Okay. Yeah, because we're faster here, and because Rotom is completely walled by Eternatus, I think this next turn it's completely fine to just click Flamethrower onto Solgaleo and then just max Rockfall. I guess the only fear in going for that is if, like, I burnt myself. So, like, do I want to play around the potential burn? Because, like, max Rockfall is a guaranteed knockout onto Rotom right now. Yeah, okay, this turn I'm down to just Dynamax Cannon Yveltal and Rockfall into Rotom, because, like, they're not baiting Solgaleo unless they activate my Weakness Policy anyway. Right? So... feels fine to me. Okay, Rotom protects. Perfect. That's why I went for Rockfall into it, covers for it protecting. Yeah, it's interesting, because, like, I feel like our restricteds don't actually match up super well here, but because of the way we stagger Dynamax and, like, the pressure that we got from Yawn, that's a crit as well. It's unfortunate for them, but I honestly don't think it makes a difference here, even if they were to wake up, because Solgaleo's faster. Like, how are you ever KOing it here, right? Like, Foul Play, you would need multiple hits for, and Rockfall was always going to KO Rotom here, so we were always just one turn away from winning anyway. But curious what the rest of the attacks on Yveltal were. If it's Snarl, I mean, you would expect Foul Play, Sucker Punch, Oblivion Wing. Does manage to wake up. I expect Foul Play here, but okay, goes for Oblivion Wing. That's fine. Yeah, it's not really that much damage, honestly. Now, Yveltal does manage to heal up a hefty amount, but that's okay. Yeah, I mean, I think Dynamax Cannon and Rockfall here should honestly just get the KO. And we're faster with both, so no need to risk a burn or a self-crit. A self-crit doesn't really matter, to be honest. It's just the burn. And, like, I'm pretty sure it's AV Yveltal here. Okay, so there's another Dynamax Cannon. Shoutouts to Snorlax in this game. I'm really glad to have, like, a game that features, like, how valuable Snorlax can be in the right team. And I think this team protects it so well, and it's fun because, yeah, like, it feels, it can be a little bit tricky to Dynamax Solgaleo early if you're not confident on picking up knockouts quickly, right? And, like, We actually could have gone with Entei plus Solgaleo as the lead here, but I don't know the items on Yveltal and Groudon, and Solgaleo's so weak into both of those, I'm not willing to take that risk early on. So, yeah. Snorlax just the MVP here with Thick Fat getting Yawn, off 4 times in this game and putting, 3 different Pokemon to sleep. Or is it 2? Because it was just Rotom and the Yveltal, I guess. But, yeah, Snorlax was an absolute beast in this one. So, this set is just super, super cool. So, let's look for one more. Third game here, and it's Calyrex, Kyogre, Regieleki, Whims, Indeedee, and Incineroar. By the way, this is just an interesting observation, but I'm playing at afternoon time on Sunday, Pacific, and I'm just surprised. It's been really hard to find battles recently. Takes a while to match me up, and normally a lot of the opponents recently haven't really been around my ranking. So curious if it's the same experience that you guys have had. I'm wondering if just fewer people are playing at this time, especially because it's a Sunday. But I'm trying to just, record a bunch before the next week. Anyway, it's Kyogre and Calyrex here. Very hyper-offensive. A version of this team with Landorus over Incin actually got top 8 at Indianapolis Regionals. It was used by Carson Comfer, the 2016 Senior Division World Champion. And that team had Specs Calyrex, which was pretty nasty. I think Vest Thundurus here is really cool. I'm down for a Grimmsnarl Thundurus lead. Snorlax is actually interesting. I mean, Solgaleo and Eternatus are always solid in the back. But basically the idea here is with Assault Vest, the Thundurus can actually take attacks pretty well. We wall Regieleki. And I can also, take decent damage from Calyrex and Kyogre, but retaliate back with, Max Darkness, or Max Overgrowth, or Max Lightning. So... yeah, I want to give Thundurus a time to shine here. It's going to be Instant Kyogre. Okay. I mean, with this, what do we expect? Fake Out plus just a Water-type attack immediately into the Grimmsnarl slot. My opponents today, by the way, are doing a great job of denying Grimmsnarl just getting at anything. But the best way to handle Grimm is to just KO it on turn 1 before it can get screens up. Because, bringing Grimm in the back always feels a little bit awkward, right? In this position, I honestly think I'm down to just Dynamax and go for Lightning immediately onto Kyogre. And I kind of want to switch Grimm out into Eternatus here, because I think Grimm is really valuable for a Thunder Wave potential onto Calyrex Shadow Rider, as well as Light Screen in the late game. And let's say Kyogre Dynamaxes here, and my opponent turn 1 goes Fake Out onto Eternatus, Max Geyser onto Eternatus. They are in terrible shape going into turn 2 if that's the play they make, which I think is decently likely. The other play is to just go for Scarf Water Spout if you have Choice Scarf. But if you're not Scarfed here, then Thundurus moves first, we get the Max Lightning off. So yeah, one of the reasons I wanted to just feature this team is because I think it's pretty anti-meta, has a lot of cool sets on it. So let's see. Thundurus maxes. Kyogre's gonna max. Good. Even if you Geyser into Thundurus, because of AV, we should take it, right? So I'm fine with that. And chipping away, I guess it's not even chipping, it's significant damage, but getting, that much damage on a Kyogre to begin with and then potentially putting in KO range of Dynamax Cannon is amazing for us. So I'm hoping to see Fake Out plus Geyser into the Eternatus slot right now. There's Fake Out. Good. So that was the bait. We shall get Max Lightning off here. Kyogre takes that pretty well. If I want to KO it, I might have to double up onto it next turn, which I'm okay with. The scary thing, though, is Calyrex coming in for my opponent. There is Geyser. Yep, okay. It is the play I was expecting, which is to double up onto Eternatus. Now, Eternatus can actually heal back all the damage we just took. So this turn is interesting. Do we think Kyogre is protecting? Because if not, I can just double up onto it, Dynamax Cannon plus Max Lightning. Is that Assault Vested, I guess, is my other question. It took Max Lightning fairly well, but... it kind of looks like AV to me, but I honestly don't know my Landorus-T into Kyogre calc super well, so we'll see if they have a max guard here. Maybe Kyogre is just ultra bulky here and doesn't have that much speed, for example. Because if you're Kyogre with no bulk investment... okay, perfect. Let's see if this even gets the knockout, though. Dynamax Cannon obviously does double, but Kyogre seems to be very tanky. Oh my gosh, I think it's actually going to survive. That's so sad. Let's see, it's really close. It's actually really close. Oh, but they max Lightning Thundurus. That may have honestly just been a misclick. Because I don't see why you wouldn't ever click Geyser there. Rather than Lightning. Yeah, I mean, that's the other thing. People, like, Thundurus-T is so uncommon that you just, like, a lot of people don't know what to do against it. So, I'll take it, but, okay, and Whimsicott comes in. Whimsicott obviously allows them to get a Tailwind up now, so I do have to be careful about that. We've come out of the early game decently, or, like, I should say in a decent spot. I just can't believe how close we were to KOing Kyogre there. Oh, so close. What do I want to go for here? Does it make sense to even go for any of that? I mean, max Overgrowth to actually get the terrain up allows Eternatus to heal back more. So I'm down for that. And Flamethrower into Whimsicott. The thing is that, like, I basically need to conserve oh, you are switcheroo. But, like, I feel like that's fine, right? You now don't get the speed advantage, and I still KO your Kyogre before you move. So that feels fine for me. And now Whimsicott can't even Tailwind. Could be worse. Losing Assault Vest definitely stings a little bit because I'm nervous about the late game against Calyrex Shadow Rider, but I don't think that will be too much of an issue here. Given the Grimmsnarl like us conserving Grim. And now Eternatus is healing back leftovers from leftovers and grassy terrain, which is pretty sweet. Okay. Very nice. And I don't, like, Whimsicott is essentially a dead slot. I mean, it can still Moonblast, so actually I should respect that, because Moonblast is actually really significant damage on a Grimmsnarl. I could totally still get swept by Calyrex late game here, by the way, so I really have to be careful about it. Okay, especially because I don't have AV anymore. Man, maybe Snorlax over Solgaleo was actually the call, because Snorlax is so much better in a Calyrex because of the normal typing. I don't have AV anymore. You could just Astral Barrage plus Moonblast. Like, we've got Dark Pulse on this. I mean, I'm going to protect Eternatus. I'm just thinking about switching out in a Grim or just sacrificing Thundurus. But I think we just protect here. I'll Dark Pulse, but, you know, we'll never actually get it off. But the idea is protect, bring in Grim, then I can Thunder Wave Calyrex or just Light Screen. Would I rather T-Wave or Light Screen here? That's actually a pretty big question. I'm also, like, does Astral Barrage one-shot Thundurus here? If so, things get really scary. Like, let's say you actually respect Calyrex here. I could be in danger. But, okay, nice. Doesn't get the KO. Gives us the free switch out, which is actually very kind of my opponent. And let's go out in a Grim now. Yeah, the scary thing is late game Calyrex Shadow Rider on these hyper offense teams, like if you position it correctly, it can just be an absolute monster, right? So I'm still pretty scary. They actually Moonblast into Eternatus. Okay, perfect. So with that now, I have Thunder Wave and Light Screen Pressure. I think I'd rather Light Screen this turn and then Thunder Wave the next. Like, we can Light Screen and Dynamax Cannon here into Calyrex. I guess if Calyrex has Psyshock, can that KO us? Part of the fear is if I could miss Thunder Wave, whereas like Light Screen is guaranteed now protection for the next couple of turns, which I find to be really important here. And because if I were to miss Thunder Wave and they like Astral Barrage, Moonblast, and just KO Grimmsnarl, it's an absolute nightmare. But now with Light Screen up, yeah, we don't take that much damage at all. Beautiful. And this is, as always, one of the downsides of Switcheroo. I think my opponent would have been better off clicking Tailwind there that turn and then conserving Switcheroo plus eject button for the subsequent turn. That Calyrex took Dynamax Cannon really well, though. I'm kind of impressed by that. And you can see here, if I didn't have Light Screen here, Grimmsnarl would have fainted, right? So, it's exactly the logic there. And once again, all Whimsicott can do right now is click Moonblast. Eternatus will always win the 1v1 against Whimsicott because I have Recover here, as well as just, you know, leftovers and grassy terrain. So now that we've set up Light Screen, let's just Thunder Wave into Calyrex and Astral Barrage. Even if you protect, it's fine because I set up Light Screen, and late game Solgaleo also looks really sweet now. But if we get the Thunder Wave off successfully, that should be GG. I'm just surprised at how well Calyrex is taking the Dynamax Cannon. Like, I feel like my calcs are so off. Like, between, what, the previous game where Groudon took, like, over 50% from a Dynamax Cannon, and here with Calyrex taking under 50? They do go for the Protect, but that's fine. Okay, it's just going to be Moonblast onto Grim. That's fine. Bye-bye, Grim. Now we can just bring out Solgaleo. And as long as Solgaleo does not get crit here, we should be okay. Because I can just double up onto Calyrex. And their late game is Whimsicott plus Incin, to which Eternatus kind of beats both of those. And part of why I was like, I really want to set up Light Screen right now is because it just allows Solgaleo to have a much better matchup into Calyrex. And like now they'll just likely activate my policy. So yeah, we're just going to Sunsteel Strike and Dynamax Cannon here. I, once again, just don't really care about Whimsicott because the only thing he can do right now is Moonblast. We know it has the Assault Vest now. Okay, Whim switches out, which I agree with. You need some more pressure out on the field. I wonder if you ever consider a double Protect here with Calyrex so that you can pressure Fake out the next turn. That's actually like the potential game-winning play for them to come back into it. Because I think if you just Astral Barrage here, then you're hoping for a crit. It is just Astral Barrage though. Works for me. Okay. No crit. Perfect. And they'll very kindly activate policy for us. That's the thing about fighting up against Solgaleo. This thing can take attacks really well if you have Light Screen and Reflect up. And as a result, like, it's often hard to deal with Solgaleo on the, like, other than activating weakness policy via your super effective attacks. Okay, so now Whimsicott's one attack away from getting KO'd, and like I said, like I think Eternatus should always just win against my opponent's duo. Actually, not always, because I'm actually running out of Dynamax Cannon PP. Yeah, that's actually the one reason we wouldn't be able to win in the long run, which is kind of funny. Okay. Grassy Terrain is still up here. Actually, it just expired. So given that, then I can just safely Earthquake, honestly, but I don't want to knock out my own Eternatus, maybe let's be a little bit careful. And also, it could be Shuka Incin. Have we seen the item on that yet? Don't remember. 2 turns of Light Screen. I mean, I don't really have too much to lose here from a double Protect, right? I could also Recover here. Protect Recover also works, yeah. I don't even think I needed to protect Solgaleo, to be honest. Like, but, I mean, there's nothing wrong with this play either, right? Like, what's the worst thing they could do here? Okay, Moonblast into Solg. Darkest Layer right into Solg. Cool. I'm just gonna Earthquake here. Oh, actually, Whimsicott Moonblast will just KO Thundurus, no? So if I switch Eternatus out into Thundurus, that faints. I could EQ, but then it's Eternatus 2v1, which I actually think it wins anyway. I just, like, ideally don't want to click Rock Slide because Rock Slide can miss right now, and I don't think +2 EQ actually KOs Incin. Like, it's Shuka-Berry Incin I want to respect here. Okay, honestly, I'm down to just Dynamax Cannon, Sunsteel Strike, and then just Max Cannon Incin. Like, yes, I'm running out of PP, but I have enough to win this. Plus, it's like, then it's Thundurus, T-Bolt, or Focus Blast as well as Eternatus. We just double up onto Incin constantly. I could have just clicked Earthquake there, but like, I don't know. I don't like the idea of ever knocking my own Pokemon out in this position, especially because their Incin shouldn't ever win against Eternatus, because we have Recover. So like, I'll let them KO Solgaleo, so be it. I could go for a Rock Slide there, but this just ensures the knockout onto Whimsicott, and I don't want Whimsicott to just like one-shot my Thundurus before Thundurus gets an attack off. So that's the logic here. Okay, Lariat comes out. Now it's just Thundurus. plus the Eternatus, and I can just Dynamax Cannon away. Incin shouldn't really have recovery, so kind of a long drawn-out endgame here, but I always felt like there was no way my opponent could actually win. I guess since I had Light Screen there, I actually could have switched in Thundurus and gone for Earthquake. Because I can survive a Moonblast there, but I don't think it really makes a difference. I do have Focus Blast here, but I do want to ensure the victory. I just haven't seen Focus Blast's animation in a long time. That's the reason I want to click it. But it's not as consistent. Okay. This is the thing with this Eternatus, right? Yeah, we're not going to do that much damage, but that's okay. Because we win the trade-off in terms of damage output. And T-Bolt does not get the KO, but that's fine. They're just going for a Lariat. And another one will now finish him off. Cool. Yeah, like the main thing in this game was being able to, you know, neutralize the Kyogre early. Turn 1 worked out really well for us. They did have that turn where they went Max Lightning into Thundurus. You know, that was obviously a big wasted attack. So, yeah, had they just gone for Geyser there onto Thundurus or onto the opposing slot, could have been scarier, but... Yeah, I mean, the Kyogre also bulky enough to take 2 Max Lightnings and a Dynamax Cannon, so that was certainly impressive as well. Because if we just get that knockout there immediately, then, you know, feels like they have such little offense in the late game. Although Calyrex was still really scary here, right? So, like, part of what I had to do in this endgame was maneuver around the Calyrex and make sure I don't make any, like, really big misplays against it. So, yeah. Either way, though, I'm glad to feature, like, the Dynamax AV Thundurus. Glad to feature the Snorlax a little bit as well. Let's check their team here. It was Sash Calyrex with Solar Beam. I generally think Leaf Storm is a little bit better, but Solar Beam makes sense if you want to cover for like Groudon specifically, because then you can take advantage of your opponent's Sun. Thunder Cage, which is pretty interesting here. Max Speed, Eject Button as we saw, Helping Hand, Tailwind, Moonblast, Switcheroo, Psychic Seed, Indeedee with Energy Ball, Shuka, the rest of Shuka on Incin, and Brick Break here, so it covers for screens, and then AV Kyogre. Wow, it didn't have any bulk either. AV Kyogre with no bulk was able to take Max Lightning, and Dynamax Cannon. It's a testament to how bulky, naturally bulky this Pokemon is. But yeah, really enjoyed playing this episode and featuring, you know, a very unique restricted core as well as things like Thundurus and Snorlax. And so maybe Entei will get some more playing action in the next one. But thank you so much as always for watching. Thank you to Zordor for the team. Details in the description below. Leave a like if you enjoy. Don't forget to answer the question of the day, and I'll see you all soon. All right, peace.